So welcome everybody. Make butternut squash lasagna. Thank
Yeah,
you, Chris, for doing this one.
I'm so very excited. I had I don't know, butternut squash is so tasty, and it's so very easy to make a sauce out of it because it's got just the right amount of water to fiber ratio that you really don't need to add much else to it. We're gonna put sour cream in there just for some richness, but you could literally just do this with basic butternut. Um, and Yeah, and we're gonna do homemade pasta, which is really like the focus of this program. So let's, without really further ado, let's just jump right into that. And then I'm just gonna kind of walk you guys through it, and you're gonna find out how easy it is to make your own pasta at home. And you can do this whole process by hand, especially with lasagna. That's really nice because the pasta can be fairly thick, so you can just hand roll it out and do your sheets. You don't need a big roller like I'm gonna use, but the roller definitely helps. But that's one of the cool things about lasagna is that you don't really need the pasta to be super thin. So just to sort of start us off here, I'm gonna go ahead and get my pasta dough ready. You guys are just gonna kind of see me over here putting stuff in the bowl right there. That's my nice KitchenAid. I got a dough hook on there right now. I'm gonna go over there. I'm gonna measure 2 cups of pasta flour in there. I'm using today. Oh, before we start, you got to talk about mise en place. What are you talking about? So my mise en place is pretty small today. It's really just butternut squash, cheese, eggs, and flour because we're going to make our noodles. And then it's more like sort of my mise en place of my actual equipment. I've got a blender here you guys can't see, and then my mixer, which is going to help a lot. And I've got a really cool pasta roller attachment, which is super sweet. And so I'm going to go over there. I'm going to measure 2 cups of flour and a little bit of a pinch of salt. And I am using a really nice 00 flour today. 00, you see that right there. It's really good for pizza and pasta. It's got a higher gluten content, but it's not quite as high as something like a bread flour, where you're going to really be fighting against it when we go to roll this out. And it's got a little bit coarser texture, just like a tiny bit, not too crazy. It's less uniform, I guess would be a good way to describe it. So we're going to go ahead and measure 2 cups. And there's 2 different ways to measure cups. You can pour into the cup, which is going to give you a lighter measure, or you can scoop, which is going to give you a heavy measure. We want a heavier measure, so we're going to scoop on this one. If you do pouring, or if you scoop out and put it into your cup for your measure, you might end up needing like another quarter cup or so when we actually get to rolling out the pasta. And as you roll the pasta, all of the it's very easy to incorporate more flour in if you find that your dough is a little too wet. But this is a really perfect batch of pasta for, depending on how hungry you are, about 4 people. I'd say about a half cup of flour usually will get you a good amount for one really hungry person. And but you can make it stretch. A good sauce definitely sort of brings things together really well. I'm just going to leave this flour here because I know I'm going to need it for later. So I've got 2 cups of flour in there, really simple, just a little pinch of salt. And then we're just going to raise that up here and just let that salt sort of start to mix in. While that happens, I'm going to go ahead and measure my olive oil in there. I've got a tablespoon of olive oil. I'm just going to put it right in there. You can crack the eggs and then mix the olive oil in. Like if I was doing that, if I was doing this by hand, I might make a well and crack my eggs, and whisk them up. But I'm just going to put the oil right in there. It's honestly easier. This is going to be very well mixed and kneaded, a full 10-minute knead. So it doesn't matter if the oil hydrates sort of different parts, because eventually it's just going to get so well mixed that that oil is going to get very well distributed. So I've got my oil in there, and I've got 3 nice eggs here. I got these ones from local farm. I've got some chickens out back too. Got some of their eggs here as well. You want large eggs, so they're pretty standard size if you can get them. But smaller ones will do. You just might want to use a little less flour, basically, if you do have smaller eggs, or even just put a little bit of water in there, sort of make up for the difference. I'm just going to go ahead and crack these right in here. Thought I saw something in that egg, but we're good. Making a mess. So I'm just cracking them right into the bowl, and I'm going to come back later with a spatula, and I'm going to start scraping down the sides of the bowl and kind of just throwing the flour into the bowl to make sure that it makes it all the flour gets well mixed. I'm sure any of you who have a KitchenAid mixer are probably pretty well acquainted with the fact that it doesn't always mix super well when you don't have tons of flour in there. So we got to kind of give it a little bit of help. And so we're just going to come in here. We're just going to flip the flour over from the edges into the center so that starts to mix the eggs good. We're going to make sure we scrape that bottom and just be careful. You know, you can turn this off if you need to, but I find if I just keep towards the edges, the dough hook doesn't usually scrape the edges that much. So I can usually avoid the dough hook and get this mixing up. And we're just trying to make sure that that we actually see it start to mix before we start our timer. It's going to take a little bit of a sort of folding to get that started, but once it starts, it should form a nice little ball and start kneading really, really nicely. And we're almost there right now already. Oh yeah. I've got my oven preheated as well. Make sure that I'm ready to go on that front. I don't want anything slowing me down. You know, obviously, if you're cooking at home, you're taking your time. You don't need to worry about things like that. You can make this pasta dough ahead of time, have it ready in the fridge. You know, get home and just start. Pasta dough really doesn't care if it's cold that much. It likes to be room temperature, but it's not going to really be that big of a deal if it's cold while you're working with it. You just want to make sure you give it time to rest. So we're going to knead it for 10 minutes and we need to let it rest. If we don't let it rest, the gluten's going to be really, really tight and it's just going to be harder to roll it out. Granted, we have a pasta roller, so it doesn't really matter. We could probably knead it immediately, but if you're doing this by hand or doing it with a hand crank, you want to let it rest. It's going to make your life so much easier. So this dough is about to come together right now. I'm just going to give it a little bit more flip here, a little bit more dry to get incorporated before it starts to stick to the sides. There we go, almost there. Cool. Just going to give this a little pause and just sort of push this together up against the side of the bowl. It's going to help it to knead a little bit better. Come on, little buddy. There we go. Perfect. Almost there. It's going to be slightly dry dough. We want it to be dry. Well, not super dry, but you want to have just enough moisture so that the dough starts to come together. It's just going to make a pasta that has a much harder bite. It's really important when you're doing noodles, but especially for lasagna like this, we want it to be pretty solid so that we can actually taste those layers of noodles. They don't just kind of melt into the whole thing. All right, this is almost there. Come on, little guy, come together for me. And you know, you can help it along too if you want to get your hands in there. Just kind of smush it against the side. That'll help the particles sort of get together. And just want to mix this on low, and let it sort of knead up. I'm going to go ahead and set my timer for 10 minutes. Beautiful. We are rocking. So now we're gonna while that's going ahead and kneading, we're gonna go ahead. Here, let me show you what it looks like actually again. Might as well. So it's still a pretty shaggy dough. You can see it's not fully together, you know, but if I squeeze it together like this, it stays together really, really well. So I'm actually gonna, while I got this out, I may as well, I'm just gonna push this down, get all those shaggy pieces stuck together, and that's gonna actually make it so it kneads a little bit faster, which is nice too. We do want it to be pretty dry. You know, you're gonna be like, wow, that's a dry dough. This is a little drier than I actually am used to. And you know, that's just like, it can change any day. We're not weighing our flour, so because of that, moisture levels aren't going to be quite as sort of taken into account. So I might hit this with just like a tiny splash, like we're talking like a splash, like less than a quarter teaspoon of water, just to bring it together. It's kind of amazing how water can how much water can change this. All right, super. Let's let that knead a little bit. I might hit it with some water in a second, but I think we're going to be good. All right, perfect. So while that's kneading, we're going to get our butternut squash ready to go in the oven. I already got my oven preheated, so I'm just going to put you guys down here. So you may have seen me peel butternut squash before. This is the way I really like to do it. I think it's really fast and easy. Oh, there we go. I'm gonna hit that with just like a tiny splash of water. Perfect. That should come together a little better now. So I'm gonna do the bulb first, and then I'm gonna work my way to the thing. So you just want to kind of peel this towards you. I like the Y peeler for doing squash, particularly just because it works really well on the cuts that I like to make when I'm peeling. Sweet. So we got the bulb pretty well clean, and then what you do is you just turn it this way. And you come from the bulb all the way down the stem, nice long strips. And you usually try and get it more off the bulb. This one's got a pretty extreme sort of bulb, so getting in that little crook is not quite as easy as it usually is. Cool. And then we're just gonna finish off the top here, make sure we get as much access to that meat as possible. Butternut squash meat, that is. Compost open here. Okay, sweet. Now this is the craziest butternut squash I have ever seen in my entire life. I don't know if it got mixed with an acorn or what, but it's gonna have a pretty decent neck. I'm hoping. I'm just gonna peel this whole thing like I would if the bulb had already been peeled, because it's kind of just like it's a blob. So we're just gonna sort of go to town on this and get it peeled however you can. Not the prettiest one, but I'm sure it's gonna be really, really tasty. Here, actually, this is the move right here. Take a look at our pasta once I get these peeled. Make sure that I got a nice dough ball. It sounds like I do, so I think we're going to be good over there. And my peeler is not liking the squash at all. Oh well, we'll make it work. And I'm whipping out the other one. I got one of each peeler. You know, you got to make sure you're prepared for anything. Really fun technique, if you guys have never done it before, is you can peel both directions with these peelers. So you know, when you got a thing like this, you can just kind of rub it up and down like that. Sort of rapid fire. It works better with carrots, not weird squash, but it works just fine with weird squash as well. Just making our way around this very, very strange squash. Perfect. That'll do. I'm gonna clean up this massive mess I made real quick. Squash peels. Oh yeah. Perfect. Squash peels are gone. So now we're just going to break them down. I always like to cut the bottom off first because I've got a nice hand right here. Then I'll cut the actual bulb off, and then we'll get the stem separated. And then the bulb goes in half so we can take the seeds out. Do the same over here. Not really sure where the bulb is on this one, so I'm just going to kind of wing it. I'm assuming it's going to be about here. Oh, it's just like the whole thing is a bulb. That's kind of crazy. Oh well. That is a-okay. We'll still cut that in half just because it's easier to scoop. Cut this one in half too. Do the same thing to that. And I'm just going to take a look at my dough. Yeah, just like a touch more water. So that should be good. 4 more minutes of kneading. Awesome. So we'll go ahead and get these things scooped out. Now you can save these seeds if you want to, roast them just like a pumpkin. Pretty much any squash seed is edible, but they're kind of hard to separate. They're not quite as easy as pumpkin because the guts kind of hold on to the seeds a lot more. But you can actually roast the whole thing if you don't care about like a crispy outside. You can roast the whole thing, including the guts. And once the guts are roasted, they actually are a lot softer, and it's a little easier to sort of pick the seeds out as a snack. Doesn't necessarily taste as good, but you know, if we're talking just pure food sense here, if you're that hungry, just eat the guts, honestly. there's nothing wrong with them. They just got a lot of fiber, so they often are discarded in a culinary sense. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with them. They don't taste that like they taste pretty much just like squash. They're just very fibrous, not exactly the best on your mouth, but yeah, you can actually just season them and roast them. And if you roast them really hard, they kind of get a little crispy, and that's actually really nice. It kind of almost makes up for the fibrous part. It's a nice little snack, easy way to get your seeds and your fiber in. Here's our butter. Now we're just going to go ahead and cut it up. We don't need to cut it up into super small pieces because we are going to eventually blend this up. We're not going to eat it as is. Some of the pieces are, of course, going to go into the lasagna, but they'll be so soft and roasted at that point. And we can also just like sort of pick the ones that we want. You know, we don't have to use the big ones. We can pick out the small ones and use those for our sort of garnish layers. So we have a little bit more texture. All right, so we're just chunking this up nice and big. We're roasting this at a really high temperature. I have my temp set to 450. And I think that's, you know, my oven's kind of weird anyway, but in general, higher temperatures really work well if you don't have a convection, because they make the liquid burn off a lot faster. And really, when you're roasting, that's like the big thing you want is you want to decrease the moisture in the vegetables so you can get nice browning and caramelization. And with that, you're going to add a lot more flavor. So we're just cutting these up kind of like I would like an apple, maybe. You know, you're just kind of doing little wedges, and then with the wedges, you're just going to cube them up. That dough sounds perfect. Looks much better too. Just a little bit more water in there, and that could have been the eggs. You know, maybe I had a small egg. There's so many different things that can change for pasta. And even if I hadn't added that water, that pasta dough would have been fine. It would have been a little dry, but after the 20 minutes of resting, the flour is going to do what's called hydrate. And it's going to suck up all that water, and it would have ended up being fine. I just, for my machine, it feels a little bit better if I make a little bit of what I would call a softer dough by adding a little bit more water in there. All right, beautiful. And just one more. All right, sweet. There's our squash. And then we got to have, you know, some garlic as per usual. I feel like I haven't cooked with garlic in a little bit. So I'm very excited to be using a full 2 bowls here. You can literally put in as much as you want. The recipe says, I think what, like 6 to 20 or 4 to 20. Literally put as many as you want in. You can go more than 20 if you've got one of those like big things of garlic. You can put that in there. We're gonna roast it, so it really it doesn't matter. It's not gonna be super. Ooh, this garlic is good. I need another. Old. That one doesn't feel very good either. We got gypped. This one's I think gonna be okay. That'll be enough. All right, sweet. So we'll go ahead and get these here. And so we're going to leave these mostly whole. So we're actually going to go ahead. Oh, there's my timer. Awesome. Oh, yeah, this looks perfect. So sweet. Okay, I'm just going to show you guys this dough real quick so you can kind of see what it now looks like now that it's had some time to knead. And it hydrated a little bit. And this is like perfect. I think this might be the best dough I've ever made. So you can use plastic bag. I like to use plastic bags just because I feel like it's easier. So this is what my dough looks like right now. You can see it's not super smooth. It's kind of craggy, and that's good. We want that. That means that's because it's a fairly low moisture dough. That's going to turn out to be a really nice layer. And it's not super yellow like you'll often see with a lot of egg pastas, just because we're using whole eggs. I don't like waste. I know you can eat, you know, egg whites, and if you do eat egg whites on the regular, so I got this wrapped in plastic. I'm just going to let it rest here until we're ready to use it. If you eat egg whites on the regular, please do use more yolks in this recipe instead. But for me, the egg whites end up being kind of like a waste product. I mean, I can eat them. I know I can eat them, but I like a runny yolk with my eggs. So I usually don't do egg whites. So for me, a pasta recipe that uses a whole egg instead of, you know, just the yolks is really nice. And so that is where we're at right now. And you don't even need the eggs. You can do this recipe with literally just water if you want to. I'd probably need the dough for maybe like another 5 minutes, just because without the eggs, you don't have as much protein. gluten is a protein, so you want to make sure you get that gluten really, really well developed because you're working with a lower protein dough. So I just crushed the garlic, and I'm just going to put it in with my butternuts crushed and whole, just like that. Again, we're going to blend this up later. I just want this to get nice and cooked and delicious. Oh yeah, so good. Oh, that's another moldy one. Weird. It happens to garlic. You know, things grow underground. Can't expect them to last forever. Oh my God, so good. I love the smell of garlic. I don't know. It's something chemical. I'm sure there's like something in garlic that my body just needs all the time. And that's got to be why I just love it so much. But oh wait, it's flavor. So much flavor. So this has a little bit of mold, but not too much. And you know what? I'm just gonna get rid of it. It's not worth it. Not worth messing up our beautiful flavors that we're developing. It's huge. I'm just gonna rip that in half. And I'm putting I'm not even bothering to trim these. Again, any of you who have been with me for a long time know I really like roots. I really like skin. So I'm leaving the garlic root in there. There's plenty of nutrients in there. Roots and skin tend to be the big nutrient hoarders in plants because they're the things that have to deal with all of the sort of intruders. And so because of that, they just tend to have a lot of stuff in them. You know, whatever it is that plant is known for, you're almost guaranteedly going to find a lot of it in the skin and the roots. You know, there are definitely exceptions. I don't think mango skin is necessarily the best part of the mango, for instance, but there definitely or kiwis, but there definitely are. Usually, that's kind of a good rule. So we got our butternut and our garlic. Really, really simple here. We're just going to put a little oil on there and a little bit of pepper. You can do salt. I'm going to skip it just because, you know, I am a low salt man. And honestly, this butternut is going to taste so good. It's not even going to matter. I'm not putting too much pepper on there either because there's going to be quite a lot of pepper in our ricotta mixture. And I'm just stirring this like this. The way I really like to do it, I kind of you kind of like push away a little bit and then just sort of pull it back, and you just want to catch it. And give this a practice. This is a really good technique to do with a bowl. If you get really good at this, you can do it with a pan almost instantly after that. And doing it in a pan is a really good way to sort of just like get things mixed up. Sometimes a spoon just doesn't do it. We're going to go ahead and just put these on here. We're going to give them a little bit of space. Just because I want them to get pretty brown. You can probably put these on one tray, but we've already done it at this point, so we may as well put it on two. Great, go ahead and whack those in the oven. Set our timer for 20 minutes. Let's do 10 minutes. I'll stir them after 10. And we want our dough to rest for about 20 minutes. So it's actually kind of perfect timing. Those butternut and the dough are going to be done about the same time. And we're basically going to be just making our pasta at that time. We're gonna, there's a piece of butternut over here. Oop. Okay, sweet. Just gonna clean up my workspace a little bit. Always a good idea when you have some time, and this is definitely the time that we have time. Got an egg. I don't know if you guys know this, but if you ever do hard-boiled eggs, you don't know how to test it, just give them a little spin. Well, that's not right. So, raw eggs shouldn't spin like that. This egg is, oh, there we go. So you can kind of see it does like a little like wobbly spin from the yolk. But hard-boiled eggs will spin perfectly. And that's a good way to tell them apart. There's actually this really cool trend going on now where people will take an egg like this and they'll shake it as hard as they can so that they scramble the inside, and then they'll hard-boil it. So you get like a hard-boiled scrambled egg. I think it's so cool. There's actually a little tool that like shakes it for you because you got to shake it really hard. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and put together our ricotta mixture here while we have some time. And it's pretty simple. So the recipe called for a 15-ounce container of ricotta. I bought the big one because I didn't want to have not enough. I would probably recommend buying the big one. I probably should have just put the big one on the recipe. But to be completely honest with you, I thought this was a 15-ounce container. So whoopsies. I didn't realize this is a 32-ounce, right? So we're basically talking about twice as much ricotta. I would buy the big one. That is my fault on the recipe. I literally just thought 15-ounce was the big container. So you're going to be fine. Like if you get the 15-ounce or that's all you have in the house, you can put some more cheese in there, put a little extra mozzarella in there, something, but you still should have enough. It's just that this is going to make like a more full sort of lasagna. We might get a full extra layer. Let me see what we got. Look like a spaghetti squash. Oh yeah, it does kind of a little bit. No, it's not stringy though. So I'm not sure. Yeah, olive oil is fine, but you can use literally any olive oil you want or any oil you want. That was a question about what kind of oil I'm using. And then, but yeah, olive oil is great just because that olive flavor is very sort of classic, sort of Italian vibe. So I'm just piercing the skin here, or my little plastic wrap. I can never get the ricottas off, even though they have a tab. They just, oh, this one actually peeled for me. All I had to do was say something. I feel like I never actually get the tabs off. Ricotta is really fun. I never use less than one whole container, I feel like. And we're literally just going to shake it until the whole thing comes out. I love ricotta, man. It's so easy to deal with. So we got all ricotta in there. Going to crack an egg in there as well. Just need a little bit of egg. It's going to help the ricotta bind. The ricotta still has plenty of moisture in it, or rather of protein in there. And we're going to put some Parmesan in as well. So it's going to have plenty of ways to sort of stay together. But the ricotta is kind of like the cement of this experience. So we want to make sure it's something that once it bakes and sort of liquefies, when it gets cool, it's going to set up. And that's going to help us get those beautiful layers between our butternut squash, our pasta, excuse me, and our cheese. So I am going to use the cheap Parmesan for my filling, and I'm going to use the fancy Parmesan for my topping. Fancy Parmesan is going to have more texture, but I really like this cheap stuff. Just for it's actually got lower salt than the other stuff, so that's part of it. But I think it's a lot more homogeneous, which is what we want. We don't want to be spreading out our ricotta layer and have like all these little sharp, little shredded bits that are gonna mess with our pasta or our sauce, and we just don't want that. So I'm gonna go ahead and whoop, that's good enough. Put a little bit of cheese in there again, half a cup, but I probably put a little too much in there. That's okay. I like Parmesan. And this is a pretty standard filling for lasagna. If you've ever made it before, I'm sure you're like, oh yeah, I've done that before. It's literally just Parmesan cheese, ricotta, egg, and then black pepper. I'm gonna put a lot in here. I'm gonna sit here for almost like a minute and a half just grinding pepper. I love black pepper in ricotta. I think it's one of like the best flavor combos. I don't know what it is, that creamy, delicious cheese with a little black pepper specks in there. The only thing that could maybe make it better is a little bit of like chive, or green onion. And I would literally just like crack eggs, put a little flour in there, and make like a ricotta pancake out of that. Like, oh, it would be so good for breakfast. A little bit of bacon. Anyways, like I said, I'm not joking. I have a timer right now, and I'm looking at it as I do this. I'm gonna do this for about a minute. I got a pretty good fresh pepper grinder here, but this is all the pepper I'm gonna put in here. I only put a little bit on the roast. I probably won't put any more in anything else. So because of that, this is really gonna be my pepper sort of experience. So I'm going ham in here. I want a lot of fresh ground black pepper. And that's really tasty, and it's really good for you too. Actually, it's not in the recipe, but I think I might throw a little curveball here. I'm gonna put a bit of turmeric in our butternut squash filling. It's the same color. It's kind of that same orange. And with all this black pepper, I can't stop thinking about turmeric. Turmeric and black pepper are really great together. The turmeric has all sorts of really great anti-inflammatory agents, but they don't activate. You can't digest them. So you need something to sort of help break them down. And the oils in black pepper is actually exactly what you're looking for. So they're like the perfect combo. So, all right, so I got tons of black pepper, got my Parmesan cheese, my one egg. We're just gonna go ahead and mix this up until it is all together and it just looks beautiful and pepper studded. Oh yeah. Oh, it's so good. So that looks absolutely perfect. Mm-hmm. And you can see it's going to change color a little bit. It's a little bit yellow, and it's just got black pepper everywhere. I hope you guys can see how many like little specks of black pepper in there. It's so much pepper. Love it. Okay, beautiful. So that's pretty simple and easy. It's a pretty classic filling, like I was saying. You're not gonna have to really like dig too deep to believe me that that's going to be delicious. Awesome. So we've got. I'm just gonna check on these right now. We've only been in there for about 7 minutes, but I just want to give them a little stir because I know they're going to start to heat up. Where'd you go? I didn't do my my utensils well for my mise en place. Ah, there we go. My absolute favorite thing, little wooden spatula. So much good. Should have had my mitt. Awesome. Sweet. Okay, it's good. I had a little worry there moment there that my oven might have finally given out on me. It's not as hot as I was kind of anticipating, but I think it's going to be fine. I think we're going to be okay. Worst case scenario, I'll whip those out. We'll I'll check on them again in 10 minutes. I'll check on them again, and we'll see if they're still being weird. I'm going to pop in a pan, and I'm just going to saute them to cook them because my oven might have died. I don't think it did. Pretty sure we're good. I really hope it didn't. But all right. While we're hanging out, we got pretty much everything we need done. We've got our ricotta mixture. I've got my cheese here. I'm basically just waiting on the squash so that I can basically sort of get my sauce done. So that being said, I'm going to start on some of my pasta. This is already hydrated pretty well. I can see that because the color has sort of darkened a little bit. And it just feels softer. It's a little squishier. It feels more cohesive and together. So I think it's hydrated enough. It probably isn't as relaxed as it needs to be, but that's okay. I'm only going to work out some of this right now. So we're going to go ahead and just sort of squish this down into a somewhat uniform shape so I can get an idea of what we're looking at. We're going to go ahead and cut it into quarters. Sweet. And we're going to roll these out individually. So we can get some nice little pasta sheets. So this is my pasta roller. It goes right on my KitchenAid mixer. It's really, really beautiful. I love it. I store it in a bag with a bag of flour. I never wash it in water at least. And I usually put a lot of flour on there. You can see there's tons of flour on there. You don't want water in this ever. It will rust. It's horrible. And the flour is actually good for sort of keeping it dry. So you always want to store it in flour. We're just going to go ahead and start out our lowest setting. This goes right. Whoa, that goes right in the front here. No. Perfect. And you never want to run the roller on anything but level 2. Level 2 is as fast as it wants to go. Sometimes I accidentally do it higher. Perfect. We're just gonna have a little bit of flour here. Nice clean work surface, at least as clean as you can. You don't want any debris if you can, because they'll get worked into the dough and they'll make it kind of lumpy. All right, cool. So here's my little piece of flour, or my piece of dough. I'm just gonna flatten this guy out so that he can go through. So we get him nice, really nice and flat. And I can already tell that this definitely could use a little bit more rest. But I'm just gonna get started. It'll rest as we go. It should be perfect by the last one. So we want to get it flat enough so it'll go through. We're just going to run it through at level 1. Then we're going to run it through at 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to show you what I do to get nice flat edges. I just want a little bit of flour here to work with in case I need it. Don't want it to stick. A little bit of flour is always helpful for that. We're going to go to 2. Nice, this is good. It's a really dry dough, like I was saying earlier, so we probably won't need much flour while we're working it, but if it was a wetter dough, this would be when I'd be working in flour, making sure that let me sorry guys.
Chris, could you lift the camera so we could see you?
I just realized I didn't put my thing up. I got you.
Okay, thank you.
Sweet. So I just ran it through 4 times. I've got a piece of dough that looks like this. It's pretty thick. I could honestly use that as lasagna right now. It's a little thick for me. I don't really like it that thick. But what we're gonna do here is we're gonna fold it so we get nice flat edges. I'm just gonna show you guys this once. So what you want to do is you take these 2 flaps and you fold them into the center like that. And that's going to give you, and then you're going to take these and you're going to do another fold in half. Sorry, fold those into the center. There we go. And then fold that in half. We're just going to press this down. And you can see we had something that was kind of a little ragged before, but now we have these nice flat edges. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to run it through. And this should stay nice and flat like that for us. So we're back to 1 again. We went all the way to 4. We're going to go back to 1. And you end up with something that's a lot more uniform than it was before. And then we're going to run this through a bunch more times. It's going to get really long. It's going to spread itself out, and it's going to get really wide as well. So you'll sort of see that happen as I run this through. I'm on 2 right now. I'm going to go all the way down to 6, and then we're going to be, we should be good to go as far as a pasta sheet for our lasagna. And it's just getting a little bit wetter now, so I'm just going to put a little bit of flour on there as I go. Make sure it doesn't stick to my machine.
We can't see it, Chris.
Oh, yeah. This is new for me. Don't worry, guys. I'm doing this 4 more times, so you're going to get plenty of chances to see me. I just I put you down to see the show the thing. Don't worry, we got you. There you go. We're going to have plenty of time to see me roll pasta, I promise. So as you can see while this is rolling, at least I hope you guys can see, it's starting to get a little bit wider. I know it's kind of far away. It's just this is where we're sort of limited. So I'm at 4 at this point, and it's almost as wide as the actual pasta roller. It's getting a lot thinner, which is nice. So I'm going down to 5. Like I said, I'm gonna go to 6 for this, and 6 should get me enough for 1 layer. We're gonna do 4 layers of noodles, so I got 4 balls. That's 4 layers. So. Down to 6. So I let this one feed a little bit weird. I'm just trying to kind of pull it off the side, make sure we don't get anything. And that can happen really easily. Feeding, if you don't pay attention, which I kind of wasn't paying attention there, the feed won't be perfect. So I'm just going to test this. It looks like I've got enough to go in this sheet perfect, which is exactly what I wanted. So as you can see, that one piece is now really, really long, and it's holding together really well, which is perfect. This is long enough that it's going to go in my my pan twice. So I'm just going to go ahead and put it in the pan so we're ready to go when the time comes. Oh, my dough was by the heat exchange from my my oven. Whoops! Don't put your dough near that. Okay, cool. So that's that. I'm gonna go ahead and take a peek at these roasties just to see, make sure they're going good. There we go. That's much better. Okay, yeah, that's definitely gonna be fine. I'm gonna go ahead and roll this pasta dough out, and then I think we're gonna be good on this. So let me just do that quick stir. Oven's plenty hot now. Means we should have a nice roast in no time. Oh, it smells so garlicky, so lovely. Big. Oh, all right, beautiful. So yeah, so I got my dough right here. Just gonna cover that up. So it doesn't dry out too much. It's not that big of a deal. This dough dries out just because we are going to be putting a bunch of sauce on it. So, all right, cool. So I'm just gonna show you guys some more rolling out. So basically, rolling out dough is pretty simple. You want to squish your dough as much as you can so it can get through there. You want to try and make it a little bit of a rectangle if you can. That's just going to help later when you're forming. You want to start on 1, go down to 4. Then we're going to do our folding technique, and then you're going to start on 1 again and go down to 6. And that should give you perfect lasagna size noodles. If I was doing something like linguine, I'd go down to 7. If I was doing something like ravioli, I would also probably stop at 6. You want a little bit thicker pasta dough when you're doing something stuffed like that, so it can hold up and your filling doesn't sort of over moisturize it. Really love this pasta machine. It's just the normal KitchenAid brand one, but man, it just does so much good work. I've only had it for about a month, but I am fully and utterly in love with it. I don't know how I ever lived my life without fresh pasta. It's just the coolest thing ever to be able to just take literally flour and eggs and a little bit of oil and make food out of it. So again, this is 4. It's a little bit thick. You could just use this as a sheet, but I think it's too thick, honestly. So we're going to put it down here. I'm going to remember to put this back up, I promise. We're going to do both ends in. They're going to have a little bit of overlap. And then from there, we're going to fold in half. And we're going to push that down, blend those layers. And we have a nice, more rectangular sheet that we're going to feed through. And this is going to hopefully make us really, nice sheets like you just saw. So let's go ahead and pop you guys up so you can see the whole process again. Whoop, put that on too high. Here we go. So we're back on 1 here, just feeding this through. Perfect. And we're just going to work our way through from 1 all the way down to 6. Making sure I got a timer set. Don't forget about my squash. I don't know how I would forget about it, but just in case. So I accidentally ran it through on 2 there twice. That's totally fine, especially right now where my gluten is hasn't really had a chance to rest as much as I would have liked it to. Running it through on the same number can actually be really helpful because it'll stretch out when you run it through, but then it will sort of spring back. And so running it through again can be really nice to really reinforce what size you want it to be. Once it gets pretty thin, it's not going to come back as much. The gluten strands are going to be so spread out and so stretched out that they will have a lot harder time kind of springing back. But at the beginning, when you're below 4, running it through twice isn't going to hurt if you accidentally do it, or if you do it on purpose, it's definitely not going to hurt. And I always like to try and put it about center on my roller. I always have a bad habit of holding it not center so that it pushes over to the other side, but that's just a side effect of me not being, super used to using this particular one. I'm used to hand cranks. So again, we're going down to 6. So we'll start it nice and flat. This time I swear I'm going to actually pay attention. We're going to get it to feed nice. When it's feeding really nice, it's kind of beautiful. You don't even have to do anything. You just kind of sit here and it just sort of like, you use your hands as just like a little holder. And it just pulls right off your hand and it slips right off the other side perfectly. This is a really, really good batch of dough. I'm a big fan of this recipe. I think I will probably use it forever. I don't know. It's gonna be hard to sort of change my mind. So we're just checking here and make sure this is gonna be the correct length. It is. Awesome. That's what we want. That's another layer down. We'll go ahead and pop that in there as well. That's steam coming from my oven. I'm like, what is happening? Oh, good. All right, another batch of dough. We're just gonna keep rocking this out. We're gonna get them all rolled out right now, so we're ready to go. And then literally all we're gonna have to do is take this squash out of the oven. We're gonna blend it up. We're gonna make a delicious sauce, and then we are going to have lasagna, and that's it. It's gonna be like really, really rapid fire. You're gonna see it's gonna be cool. Really, like I think honestly, the most time we spent on anything was making the dough. And if you skip that part, you can imagine how quick this recipe would actually be if you just bought your own pasta. But I guarantee it's going to be way better if we make it ourselves. If you guys have any questions about the rolling process, anything you feel like you can't see from where you're at, please do put it in the chat. I'd love to answer and sort of make you guys feel comfortable with this process. It's one thing to sort of see it from afar, and it's a whole other thing to do it yourselves. So literally anything at all that you may be wondering about or want to know more about this process that I'm doing, just let me know. I am here for answers, and hopefully I have them. All right, awesome. So again, we rolled the 4, and then we're gonna do this fold again. Just gonna show you guys this as many times as possible. We're gonna fold into the center. This one's got a little like weird little nubby, so I'm gonna make sure that one goes on the bottom. And I'll do a pretty aggressive fold here. Awesome. Just patting that together so it's a nice little slip that I can put through there, make my other noodles. We're going back to 1 again. And this time we're gonna go all the way back to 6, just like last time. Ooh, that's my best one yet. It's really nice when it comes through, and like even on the first one, it's like pretty perfect, honestly. This would be a really cool like dumpling, you know. It's thick like this, but you could just like snip off bits of this and eat it. It'd be almost like a gnocchi texture kind of. Not as exciting as some of my other programs, I'm sure, but for me, this is like the most mesmerizing thing in the entire world. It's the best meditation I think that I found in quite some time. I hope it's enjoyable for you all as well. Beautiful. So I got all the way to 6 again, and I got a nice, beautiful little piece of pasta. Just going to do the same thing. Make sure that this is long enough to do both sides, which is it is. And we're just going to pop it in there. If the dough's made right, which it is, those won't stick together. They have a nice layer. For one thing, they have gluten strands that are all going the same direction. So they don't want to stick this way because all their strands are going that way. Secondly, we've been putting flour on it. So there's like a laminated layer of flour, much like with the croissant where you laminate with butter, we're laminating with flour. And so that flour is going to help them to not stick together. Cool. Before I do this last one, I'm just going to check my oven because it is steaming quite a lot. I have a feeling that these want a little bit of a stir. Oh, yeah. Let out some of that steam too. Oh, and they're nice and soft. This is good. This is good. This is what we want. Everything smells delicious. Perfect. So those are going to be probably perfect by the time I'm done with this last one. Pretty hot. Perfect. Okay, sweet. So that was that last one. I'm just going to do this one more time, and we will have all of our sheets that we need to make a delicious lasagna. Let's see what we got. Never made fresh pasta. We'll have to do it sometime together. Yeah, definitely, Cass. 100%. Could you roll out early or refrigerate? Yes, you can definitely roll this out earlier and refrigerate it if you want to. You just want to make sure that you don't lose any moisture because they will get kind of dry and crispy. You could even like roll this out earlier and dry them, kind of like one of those like easy bake lasagnas. Because you are putting so much moisture in here, it's gonna sort of rehydrate, no problem. All right, let's do this. I can already feel that this dough is a little bit smaller than the other one, so I'm hoping I might go down to 7 just to make sure that it's long enough for my my pan. But what I'll do is I'll put this one on top, because the top layer is, you don't need it to be as thick. It's not really structural. So we'll put it on top, and it'll be a nice sort of way to use up whatever we got. And if I had weighed this dough, we wouldn't have this problem, but it's okay. Doing it by eye is it's how the old Italian grandmas do it. So if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. Okay, again, we rolled it down to 4. Nice little piece here. I'm gonna go ahead and do. Oh, you got this is the ultimate one. You guys can kind of see both sections. We're gonna go and do the. That's a little too much. If you fold it together too much, you're gonna end up with a piece that's kind of smaller on this end, and it's not gonna get wide enough that it's gonna cover your whole base. So you want to try and follow this the best you can. Go into quarters and then it halves. If this area right here is too small, you're not going to get a wide enough piece to actually use as as a sheet of lasagna, depending on the size of your pan, obviously. But okay, I hear you. I'm going to turn my oven off and just let those hang out in there. If you guys are cooking this at home, you're going to want to leave your oven on. You take those out and put your oven down to like 350. I don't think it's going to get below 350, so because that's what we're going to bake it out eventually, or 375 rather. Right back to 2. We're getting close, guys. We're about to be in assembly phase. I just got to really sort of make this sauce, which is going to take absolutely no time at all. And then we will be in the makings. You can kind of steer your pasta. I don't know if you guys saw me do that. You kind of grasp both ends and just sort of, this might be long enough. A little short. I'm going to go to 7 for this one. It's the dregs. What you do is you sort of grasp both sides and you just want to kind of like very gently sort of move it along the roller so that you get to the spot you want to be. Perfect. All right, that's all of our pasta sheets. I'm just going to go ahead and lay them out over here. So I have a nice place to put them. I also have space to make my actual sheets. Sweet. Okay, and just cover those up. Awesome, got my pan here. Let's go ahead and make this butternut sauce. These are done. I probably should have just taken them out. Oh yeah. Woo! Nice. So we're just gonna go ahead and just put these all together. Perfect. There. Okay, so this just smells amazing. It looks amazing. We're just gonna go right into my blender here with a pretty good amount of this. I'm gonna start with our sour cream. Our sour cream is essentially our liquid in this. And so we want it as close to the blade as possible. The blade will break down the sour cream, create a liquid. The liquid will then absorb, start to sort of blend up the squash. The squash, as it gets blended up, will turn more liquid as well. That'll help it to all blend together. If you don't layer this right, you're gonna end up with kind of a mess. You're gonna have to sort of shove it down a little bit. It's just not gonna be as pretty or as easy to deal with as I would have liked, you know? Whew, that squash is so hot. I love it. So we're going in there with 1/2 cup of sour cream. Just go ahead and use this right here. Measure that out. Perfect. Right in there at the bottom. That's going to be, like I said, the first thing that blade touches, which is going to be good. Whoop, where'd my towel go? There it is. Awesome. And guys, I'll be right back. I just got to run to the bathroom. Sorry about that. Boston Maker, I'll be back to answer that question in just a second. Thanks for hanging in there, guys. Okay, let me see questions. Brand is the pasta maker, so that is a Cuisinart, or sorry, a KitchenAid. It's a KitchenAid mixer and then a KitchenAid attachment as well. All right, cool. So we got our sour cream in the pan. We're gonna go ahead and take most of this squash. It kind of is a little squishy, so I might not worry. I'm not too worried about, you know, saving smaller pieces. I might just make all sauce. You know me. I always like to change things up. Try and get a better grip on this. There we go. Basically, whatever fits in my blender is what I'm going to put in the blender, and then the rest I'll put in the actual lasagna as thick chunks. And make sure you want to get all your garlic in there, though. That is the most important part for the sauce. The butternut is nice for sure, but the garlic is essential. Perfect. That looks so good. That seems right. So I got a little bit of squash left. Ooh, almost missed the garlic. A little bit of squash left. I'll put that in the actual layers when I'm making it. Perfect. Okay, so this is gonna get a little loud for a second after I put the seasoning in here. So we've got some brown sugar and some. You can use, pumpkin pie spice. You can use just cinnamon. You can use whatever you want. I'm gonna use Chinese 5-spice because I just really like Chinese 5-spice. I think it's really, really delicious. It's got just pretty much all my favorite flavors in there, and it's like a savory version of something sweet. So Chinese 5-spice in there, 2 teaspoons. And then 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. My tablespoon is a little bit dirty, so I'm just going to go ahead and eyeball it. Can't go wrong. Beautiful. And then we're just going to blend it up till it's nice and smooth. This is going to get loud. Sorry, guys. It is right next to the mic. Here we go. All right, so even with my sour cream layer, it didn't really do the thing I wanted it to. So we're just give it a little shake, put it back on there. Come on, maybe. And depending on your blender, this is going to be easier or harder. But a little bit of shaking will get it done. I am going to go in there with the old stick because she's being a pain for us. There we go. That should do it. All right. My blender is not liking this much at all, but that's okay. I put a little more sour cream in there. We're gonna get this to be smooth, I promise. It already looks really, really good. It just needs to get that last couple chunks worked out, and we'll be good to go here. Come on, my blender is not loving this. I almost used a food processor tonight instead, but I really didn't think it was going to have such a problem. It's pretty smooth. It just doesn't, it's not doing that like vortex thing. So I think I'm just going to, just like I said, just mix that by hand. I think that is going to, oh, it tastes so good. Oh, it tastes so good. Good enough. I'm not gonna force it. Sometimes, it's just a little bit too thick and you can't do much about it. But as you guys can see, it is a really nice thick sauce now. And that's what we want. We want it to be almost like a little pasta sauce. So let's get our mise en place together for actual assembly. So I got mozzarella, we got sauce, we got pasta noodles, and we have our ricotta mixture. So everything together right there, you guys can see. We're just going to go for it. So we're going to start with a little bit of sauce in the bottom, just like a tiny bit. You just want a little bit to help hydrate everything and make sure that our noodles don't stick. This is kind of like buttering your pan, basically. That's delicious looking. Cool. We're going to go with our first noodles here. I'm just going to cut these guys in half. I guess I'll just like measure them. Let's see. Oop, yeah, that is about in half. And I'm just going to layer these in there. And it's okay if they overlap a little bit, not a problem. When it bakes, it's going to all be perfect. So you got pasta, then noodles. I always forget the recipe. Sauce, cheese, noodles, sauce, cheese, noodles, right? Pasta sheets, ricotta, butternut, sauce, cheese, pasta. So perfect. So we're going to go in here. And again, we're going to do 4 layers, but there was no ricotta on the top. So it's only going to be 3 layers of ricotta. To make a little sort of peace sign, that's going to tell you how much ricotta you want on each layer. We'll get our ricotta in there. Spread that out nice and even. Again, I'm going to have probably thicker layers than if you guys were using a 15 ounce, like I mentioned. Again, I would just use a big one. 15 ounce will work, but let's be honest, everybody likes ricotta. At least I do. I want nice thick layers of ricotta. We're going to spread that out really nice. And then we're just going to put a little bit of sort of speckles of this butternut in there, just so we have some sort of texture. It's not all just our smooth sauce, although the smooth sauce is really delicious and we want that. All right, back into the sauce. And again, sauce is going on pretty much every layer. So you do want to be pretty, you don't want to be too generous with this. It's pretty heavily flavored. So you just want enough to make a nice little layer there. Get in there and sort of spread that out a bit. And lasagna doesn't have to be perfect. You can do it really like perfect, but it doesn't have to be. I promise, it really doesn't. You just kind of want to spread it in there. Once it gets in the oven, it gets hot. It's going to kind of melt together into one big sort of blob anyway, so it doesn't even matter. And we're going to put cheese on top of that, mozzarella, just mozzarella. Nice thin layer. That's going to be a really good glue as well. And then we're going back with pasta sheet. And we're just going to keep repeating this action. Oop, right in half. Pasta in. Give it a nice little push down. I'm going to do another piece of our ricotta here. Do just enough for our last layer. That looks good. Spread that out. Oh, this is going to be really tasty, guys. I can tell. Oh, beautiful. Okay, so ricotta. Then we're going to do squash again. Sort of spread that all out in there. Nice little chunkies. Be a really nice sort of mouth bit when you're just like, ooh, that's squash. You know, really, it's one thing to say this is butternut squash and have it be orange. It's another thing to say this is butternut squash and you get a big chunk of butternut squash while you're eating it. It just kind of changes the vibe entirely. I'm back in there with our sauce. Again, we're going to need some of this for the top, so don't use too much of it. The top layer of sauce is actually the most important sauce. It's what's going to hydrate our top noodles and make them so they don't turn into just a crispy mess. They're actually going to cook. So just make sure that you save enough sauce for the top. Spread that out. Again, back in with mozzarella. You're doing about a half cup of mozzarella per layer, just so you know. And that's cheese. We're going back to pasta sheet again. Got my really thin layer as my last layer. That's one that's going up on top. And a nice little squish down, get it nice and uniform. And then we're going with the last of our ricotta. Wheat. This is always the exciting part of any time you're cooking, when you're just so close to the end. You know, especially something like lasagna. We're gonna put this in the oven and just sort of forget about it for about an hour. So now you can just kind of relax, read a book, whatever else you want to do with your time as you wait for this to cook. You know, you can even just like freeze it as is and cook it another time, you know, once it's made. All right, so ricotta, perfect. Last of our squash in there. Those spread out pretty nice. Cool. So good. A little bit of our sauce. Oh, yeah. I just really like food, you know, guys. Hope you do too. A little mozzarella. We're not going to go as heavy on this piece layer of mozzarella because we're going to have a lot more, like just one layer away from this on the top. So we're not going to go too crazy on that one. Just a little bit, just enough to hold it together. Again, our last one here, we're going to cut it in half. Actually got a little extra here. I might put that up there too. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. There's going to be a little like, there's a little corner here that doesn't have any. So I got these little strips here. Just going to fill that in. Be a nice little patch job. So our top layer has a nice, perfect little sheet of pasta. So our top layer got that pasta. You can see the really beautiful layers on the side. We're going to go in with the rest of our sauce now. Yeah, this is where you're going to use the most sauce because we want to make sure we get a really perfect cover on that noodle. If that noodle has anything sort of out there showing, it's going to crisp up in the oven. It's going to get crispy, not the kind of crispy we want. I'm sure you guys may have had that happen with your past lasagnas. It just kind of tastes like dry noodle. It's not a good thing. So we want to make sure this is a really nice, even coat. Everything else has been kind of just like, yeah, do it. But this one we want to really take our time on, get a really nice layer there. This is also sort of what we're going to be showing, you know, if we're feeding this to friends or somebody we care about, this is what they're going to see. So we want this layer to actually be really, really pretty. Everything else is going to kind of get lost in the layers. You know, it's going to look nice. We're going to have a good cross section, but this is what's going to be like the first thing when it comes out of the oven. Everybody's going to be like, ooh, so amazing. All right, so beautiful. We've got our last layer on there, and then we're just going to top this off with a nice little mix of mozzarella and Parmesan. I like mozzarella on the bottom. Parmesan tends to brown a little bit better, so I find that if you put it on top, it really adds that nice color. And we want to pretty much just cover this. So half a cup of Parmesan and a half a cup of mozzarella on the top. Get it really nice right to the edges. Cover here. And then we're going to cover this with tin foil so that it can get a nice slow bake. And then for the last 15 minutes, we'll take it out, take the tin foil off so the top can get really, really nice and charred. And so I have some bad news, guys. For the first time ever, I'm not actually going to cook this thing for you guys to see it because that would just take too dang long. It's almost like a full hour, but I guarantee you it's delicious. I will try and take a picture and put it on Chef Look. You can see the layers there looking pretty nice, classic lasagna vibes. I'm really excited for this one. I think it's going to turn out so absolutely amazing once it gets baked. It's really tasty. It's really delicious. And it's actually pretty good for you. You know, like we didn't really use anything crazy. It's mostly vegetables and cheese, which like cheese is good for you, right? It's a vegetable. Let's see what we got here. Earlier, cool. You're very welcome for offering vegetarian meals. I honestly almost always eat vegetarian. I pretty much only eat venison nowadays, and the occasional piece of chicken. But it's just easier, you know. You can always find veggies almost, but finding meat sometimes is not ideal.
Yes, take a picture.
Yes, I will.
I'll send it to everyone on the email
I will
list.
take a picture. It's going to be the picture that pops up on the YouTube too, so you can see that. Guys, thanks for hanging out. Emily, you popped in just in time.
I know. Thank you, Chris.
Not bad. I definitely spent too much time talking about pasta. I think that's my problem. So
It's okay.
But guys, I really appreciate you all coming as per usual. Make sure to check this out on YouTube, and just in general, keep coming for dough. We're going to keep rocking it. Next month's another dough, another different way to do it. I'm actually in the process of testing it. I really hope it works because it's going to be so good. It's going to be an Asian dough with a little bit of an Italian inspiration, hopefully. No promises,
I expect some of that in my house tomorrow.
You know, it's got a, there's a destiny for this lasagna, I must say, as one of my last meals before I head to Portugal. So, guys,
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for loving dough as much as I do. And I hope that you are not scared to do pasta anymore, because I certainly am not. I'm addicted, in fact.
Bye.